Welcome to the Daily Tokyo Hockey Show on the FIH YouTube channel with me, Sarah Juggins. It's day 8 of competition at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, and today we saw the completion of the women's pool matches. And after a day of tremendous competition, we now know the composition of the quarterfinals, which will be played on Monday the 2nd of August. Joining the show today, we have the points of view of a gold medal winning Olympian and an internationally renowned coach. From Great Britain and England, we welcome Alex Danson back for her third appearance on the show. Alex played in 3 Olympic Games, winning bronze at London 2012 and, of course, gold at Rio 2016. So, hi, Alex. Welcome to you today.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me back.
Absolute pleasure. And we're also lucky enough to be able to call on the analytical brain of Austria's head coach, Cedric de Souza. Cedric led Austria under-18s to victory just a week ago in the European Hockey Federation under-18 Championships, and has also been head coach to India and Greece. Like Alex, Cedric is also an Olympian as a former goalkeeper for Team India. So good afternoon to you, Cedric.
Hi, thanks for having the old man.
Not so old. And actually, when I said good afternoon, I meant wherever you are in the world, good time of day. If we come to Alex first, we now know who the quarterfinalists are. I'll rattle through those in a minute and who they will be facing. But first of all, I just wanted to ask you, as an athlete, is there a sense of relief at this point? Because no matter who you'll be facing, the objective is now very clear, isn't it? You've got performances ahead of you and you have to perform your best in each one of those.
Yeah, it's an absolutely enormous relief. I almost think there's 3 phases to the tournament. You have to do a job in your pool. Qualification is absolutely key. Now that part of the tournament's over and it's almost like a new tournament's begun. This is a must-win game. It's one match, has to be won. You get through it and part 3 of the tournament begins and you're playing in the medal game. So yeah, enormous, junction for everybody at this point. I know the 4 teams that progressed in each pool will be absolutely delighted. Obviously heartbreak for the 2 that go home and from each pool, but yeah, it's second phase of the tournament and let's hope that, let's see those nations get past down to the third part.
Yeah, I mean, and again, as an athlete, what on earth are you going to be thinking on Sunday evening? Because you do want to bring your absolute best game. And is it a sleepless night?
Do you know what? It's so funny. People always ask, how do you feel? How do you feel before a must-win game or an Olympic final? And some people will say, it's process as normal. It's play the game. Of course that's true. Go to your game, play your game, keep to your same processes. It's just another game, but there is pressure. Of course there's pressure, and you have to choose, I believe, to accept that. Pressure's a privilege, and just box it away. And once you've accepted it, acknowledged it, know that you're going to feel a bit jittery before a game. Know that come on, you can't pretend that there's not a lot riding on it. But then you go to your game, you go to your processes, use your teammates around you, concentrate on what the opposition will bring, and make sure your game is better than theirs. But I think it's silly to ignore it. I think it's great to talk about it, acknowledge it, put it aside, and then go and then play. And I think that's what all the teams will be doing.
Brilliant. And Cedric, as a coach, I mean, how do you help your players? You've recently obviously been in a final with the Austrian under-18s. How do you help young players learn to deal with that pressure in the way that a triple Olympian like Alex can?
Well, I think, just take what Alex just said in terms of accepting what is coming to be, what's going to come up front. And how you deal with it is a question of an individual basis to individual basis. Some have it, some don't have it. And how, as coaches, we got to try and take the pressure off them as much as possible. And what I did with the youngsters was basically get them on a one-on-one meeting and try to talk about everything else but the match.
Yeah.
Just had the team match, I had the team meeting and talked about just a few points and mostly on your strengths, on our strengths, and said, just stick to what we've learned, stick to the process, as she said very rightly. And in the end, it's about them opening up to you and, letting out what's in their hearts. If you know what's in your brain, you know what's in their brain. And until they open up and talk to you and tell you what's really troubling them, you can't really take that problem away from them. So for me, it was all about talking about just different things, maybe their girlfriends, their family, everything else different, but not hockey.
Yeah. I can't imagine what those players must be feeling, but they certainly will be excited. Let's have a look then and see who the quarterfinal matchups are going to be. Today's results, first of all. Australia beat Argentina 2-0. China beat New Zealand 3-2, although New Zealand still go through. In the Spain versus Japan game, Spain beat the host nation 4-1. India overcame South Africa 4-3. Netherlands beat Germany 3-1, and in the final game of the day, Great Britain defeated Ireland 2-0, which means that the quarterfinals look like this. Australia will take on India. It's a Spain versus Great Britain matchup. Argentina will take on Germany, and New Zealand have got the dubious pleasure of facing the Netherlands. So if we just go to the one of those early games, Cedric, we saw India put on a really great attacking display against South Africa, but they still do look vulnerable in defence. It was literally every time India scored, very, very quickly South Africa were able to come back, and Savita has had to make a lot of saves. And I think South Africa perhaps got back on terms a little too easily. What are your thoughts on both that game, but also India's performance overall in this tournament?
Well, I think if you just look at the match, it was the pace, the tenacity of the South Africans, which caught the Indian defense off guard at times. And they took the fight to Indians right through. Whenever they conceded, they get back into the match. They fought all the way. The most important thing was the fact that they were playing for pride. They knew they couldn't qualify, but they really wanted to play and win that last match and go from the Olympics with a win under the belt. As far as India was concerned, they've got a lot of skillful players, really, really strong players with the ball. The question is, as I said early on, being patient as much as possible, to try and be as patient as possible in your own half. Don't rush it. Keep possession in the opposition half as much as possible, and try and utilize the opportunities that come your way. Look at them today, having scored penalty corners, they did their homework against South Africa, because if you look at it, they have a great keeper in Mumbai. And what they did was they used the variations against them to deflect the balls in. So that was a key element for me to see Indians thinking out of the box, whereas just smashing that ball inside and finding the kind of chinks, if you want to call them, in the armor of the South African keeper, who again had a blinder. She's an exceptionally fantastic goalkeeper in every sense of the way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I also thought that India learned, or you could see them learning in that game, because although in the first three quarters they did keep allowing their lead to slip, in the final quarter they showed a lot more discipline. They showed some good game management, and they really did hold their own. So I mean, even in that short space of time, you see the Indian team are growing and learning, which will stand them in good stead when they take on Australia. They've also been very good at referrals, which is something that a lot of teams haven't been quite so good at. So I think they've made 11 referrals and 8 of them have been upheld. And those other 3 were made, the sort of the last ditch referrals in the last 30 seconds of a game. And quite obviously you're not going to get the decision. So they're playing quite a mature game, aren't they? Alex, you've played India in the past, notably at the World Cup. Do you see them as a team that's maturing in their approach?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much spot on. They're very, very skillful. It's always really tricky to play against them because, I mean, they'll beat you 3 times and still go past you. But I think actually what they perhaps maybe in the last few years had lacked some of those players who had come through when they retired. Now, yeah, there's definitely maturity to their play. They're playing different systems, which are very difficult to play against. And yeah, I think some of the results here have shown that they're on the up, and yeah, they're a really difficult side to come up against.
Yeah, I think they are. And it's going to be an interesting match against Australia. Now, talking about Australia, I don't know if you both saw it because it was very, very early this morning, but they played out a very interesting match. Argentina peppered the Australian goal in the first quarter. They had 11 attacks to Australia's 3, but they couldn't find a way through at all. Australia then scored 2 late goals through Savannah Fitzpatrick and Emily Chalker. Alex, we've seen how good the Australian attack is. I think today we saw how good their defence was. And I also think, I don't know about your opinion on this, but the hockey gods seem to have smiled on Australia because they've had quite a nice progression through the pools. So from a team who had very little international experience, they actually saved their toughest pool games till last, and it showed that they'd progressed in that time. What are your thoughts on that?
It's really interesting. I think sometimes the run of the games you have in international tournament can be really key. Now they've had obviously, as you said, they're slightly easier pool games early on, and their tougher games have come towards the end. So they've been able to build momentum. And actually, when you've had a couple of wins under your belt and you're going into the tough games, it makes such a big difference. You just look at the GB Ireland game today. I thought that was really important. They won, obviously, for points, but also it builds the momentum going into the quarterfinal. Now, Australia, really interesting one. I was not sure what we'd see of them, if I'm honest, coming into this tournament. They're very new. There's lots of, as you say, inexperienced players in there. But hey, Australia, they've got a great program. They've got great athletes. Okay, so they've lost the likes of Kenny, who was fantastic for them at the top of the D, but they proved they can score goals through Fitzpatrick et al. And absolutely, they are very solid in defence. And Argentina are an outstanding outfit, particularly up front. So I think to have that many opportunities, 11 opportunities on goal, and for Argentina not to come away with a win is all credit to Australia. I think they're going to do very well.
I mean, I think their defence is being led from the back by Rachel Lynch, who obviously had a little bit of a tricky time coming to the Olympics. And I think now she's here, she's absolutely determined to make the most of it, which is great to see. And I get the same impression with Emily Chalker and a few of those others who've been around for a while. They would like this to be their year.
Absolutely. And, Emily is a fabulous player, captain of the team for a long time. And then you've got, obviously, Rachel Lynch. She's one of the best keepers in the world. So I think with that experience, they'll be the linchpins at that side. And as you say, this may or may not be their last opportunity, and they've been very close on several Olympics.
Yeah.
I think, if you...
Sorry, Cedric, go on.
Sorry. Just as what Alex said about the Australians having played lesser known teams in the beginning and then stronger ones in the end, and they've got into a kind of a groove to be able to handle the pressures of the bigger teams. Look at India. In the other way around, India played the strong teams in the beginning, and then they played the lesser known teams in the end in terms of rankings, and they came good because that shows the maturity of the Indian team. To be able to have lost the first couple of matches and to bounce back. If you recall the last one we talked about India having to win the next 2 matches and get the 6 points, and she won the next 2 matches and got 6 points. So that shows a bit of maturity. As Alex said, the Indians they're unpredictable with their skill factor. They beat you twice, and the third time they're going to go left, they go right, that kind of thing. So the issue, I think, for India today was Mandana Kataria, who got a hat-trick and played a really brilliant match in terms of getting the victory for her.
Yeah. A quick aside, Australia made double the amount of substitutions today to Argentina. So they made 88 substitutions to Argentina's 41. And then they had the energy to go on and win the game at the very end. That's got to be a bit of a factor, particularly in the sort of temperatures that they're playing in at the moment. I don't know, Cedric, what your thoughts are on that.
If you just look at this entire tournament, the amount of mistraps and the amount of turnovers and double turnovers and just silly mistakes which happening, I think the heat has taken a toll on all the players. You'll find some of the top players who have made a blunder in the defense. In terms of, you wouldn't believe it in the men and the women's section, and you say, oh God, it's not going to happen there, and it happens, And I think the heat has taken its toll, and the more you substitute and the more you're prepared to come in and fire for the 2-3 minutes and get out is very important. The Australian goalkeeper drinks 5 liters of water during a match. I mean, I don't drink it in the whole day. So basically, you look at it from the kind of heat factor that is there, and with the equipment that they wear on, the kind of stuff. So the Aussies changing players on a continuous basis may have helped them because they know they've got to turn a task ahead, which is basically the quarterfinals and a forward. So they may be conserving energy too, because it's all about managing your time and managing your endurance at this stage.
I also think it'd be really fascinating, sorry, Sarah, to learn which teams are using the 18 players and which teams are sticking to using the 16.
I can tell you that.
Yeah, that would be, I think that's really interesting. I think as the tournament goes on, it will be really fascinating to see if that makes a difference.
Yeah, that's actually further down my list of discussion points for today, but we'll tap into it now. Only 3 sides have not used their reserves, and that's both the GP sides and Netherlands women.
Wow. See, yes, I think that's a really interesting decision. I'm sure there's reasons, so it's hard for me to comment, but I do think using 18 players seems sensible to me, because you have 2 extra lots of legs for an entire tournament. That could make a big difference. I
did wonder, because I was thinking about this, and I was trying to work out the rationale behind it, and I did wonder if it was due to the fact that the teams had prepared so thoroughly to use 16 players that they weren't prepared to throw their preps and their because it was a very, very late decision to allow the 18.
Yeah, I do think it's a late decision, but I guess my particularly GB, you're in a centralized program, everybody plays. It seems crazy to me you wouldn't use 18, but obviously there's reasons behind that.
Yeah. It's a really interesting point, and it's one that I've noticed has been questioned in the media of various countries quite a lot, and gradually more and more teams have used all of their players. But as I say, those are the 3 teams that haven't. I was just to go back to that point about playing in the heat, though, and using all your players. I just wondered, Alex, if I could ask you, as a player, when you come off and it's a high tempo match played in high temperatures, and then you see the coach taking the player over to the computer and showing them stats and talking to them, how much information can you actually realistically take on?
Probably one you should ask a coach, Sarah, as to how much information they thought we took on. I was always definitely like, Karen or Danny would often give me stuff inside, and I'd be like, yeah. You're nodding furiously, and I get it. In honesty, sometimes it goes in, and that's why you train. Hey, that's why you train in chambers. That's why you get used to the heat, and you do your best to take it on. Sometimes you are just so fatigued, and I actually think that's when, hey, the really good coaches like Karen, like Danny, know when to give you information and when not to. And actually, we got to the point as a squad, because the game is so fast. You're having to take on, change, adapt to tactics whilst you're on the field without the help of the coaches. Unless it was something really important, there tended to be less when you were subbed.
Yeah.
So, hey, when you came off, it was about hydrate, rest, have your 2 or 3 minutes, because you're going to be going back on the field. When it was really important for us to switch on was quarter times and half times. And that's, your non-negotiable. You need to get yourself in your headspace so you can take on the information, so you can implement it in the game, and so you can support the person next to you. So, I think too much as you're going on and off, really tough for an athlete, particularly in the conditions like this. So I think the best coaches get to the point where the quarter times, the half times, that's the moment.
Yeah. I look at another point of view. I think, as you said it so nicely as an athlete, I'll talk it as the other side of the fence, okay? And I think if you're giving information to the player, and if 5% goes in, it's better than 0.
Yeah.
For me, the most important thing, even if it's a little bit, it makes a change. And that's all we need to get at. So you harp on just a few points, and especially the ones which are tactical maneuver, which you think is going to break the other team. It's not a question about mistakes. It's a question of how mistakes can be seen later on at home, the video, in the video sessions. And at the moment, what is the way that you can go through the opposition defense? Is there something that is, you can break through with an ease, basically? And how do you explain that to your players without putting them under more pressure? That's all. It's always a question of percentages. It's all about percentages. And as you come into this part of the tournament, it's all about percentage hockey anyway.
What's the sort of maximum amount of points you would give someone, Cedric? Is it 3? Is it 2? Any thought?
Well, at my briefings, basically, even if it's at quarter or at half, it's not more than 3 points. Basically, hold on to as much as it is. It's as short as possible and as bullets as possible. When it comes to an individual basis, it'll be 1 or 2 max, not more than that at a time.
But just said several times so that it goes in.
Well, I think, if you have to repeat it, you repeat it, that's not a problem. And you probably, make them feel comfortable. That's the most important thing. Do you feel, you'll ask them, are you agreeing with what I'm saying? If you don't agree, talk to me about it. So you switch it. So if he doesn't agree, okay, give me another solution. What do you think about it? And then his brain is thinking. So instead of telling him, do this, tell him, okay, what's your idea of it? How would you do it? Even in this 2 minutes, if you get his mind off this pressure and say to think of something different, he's missed a goal, which was a sitter. And he's thinking about that. Oh God, I missed it. Hey, I say, okay, the next one, assist. Don't think of the goal. It's gone. You can't get it back. So, small things like that, which take the pressure off. That's the key issue. Yeah. Alex, would you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I do think the little bits that you can take in, and if you can take somebody's mind off instances like that in a game, which, their game changes, then great. You've got a player back in. Otherwise, you've lost them.
Yeah. One team that's going to need to take pressure off probably tomorrow on Monday is New Zealand. They took 4th place. I don't think Graham Shaw at the moment is going to be overjoyed with his team's performance. They began relatively well, but they haven't finished the pool games well. I'll come to you, Cedric, on this one. How much can Graham Shaw do to lift his New Zealand side now for the encounter they've got with the Netherlands?
Well, the most important thing is they've qualified into the Olympic program. They've come into the Olympics. They've played well in the first couple of matches. They may have had a couple of a stutter towards the latter part, but the belief can be brought back in terms of what they've done. You got to harp on the plus points of non-stop, not on you lost to China, you lost, that's gone.
Yeah.
If you harp on the defensive errors, then you're not allowing the players to think of all the positives that you've had. And the fact that they put in so much effort over the years has to be brought about. It's the culmination of all your efforts over the years and donkey's years, and your support from your families, your support from your loved ones, from everywhere. And now is your time to show how you can do it and how you can prove to yourself, apart from anybody else and your teammates, how you can take it forward. So for me, the most important thing is taking pressure off all the time. The Netherlands, yes, you can show they are a team which is the best team in the world in terms of what they're doing, in terms of the capacity of players that they have right through the squad. I mean, brilliant. You can't fault any player with having some kinks, but hey, it's a game. It's a question of performance on a given day. It's a quarterfinal, which is one match.
Yeah.
You go out there and you fire. Do your best. And if your best is not good enough, so be it. But you go in with the belief that you're going to win that match. You cannot go in with the belief that you can't win that match.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's no point getting to that point and not believing it. If we could just talk about the team that beat them today, actually China and Japan. Both teams have had some good games during the tournament. Japan probably can take away more positives than China. But Alex, you've played both teams, you know both teams. You've seen them move up and down the rankings. I believe, obviously in Beijing you played China and saw them win a silver. What does this mean for Asian hockey? I mean, take India out of that equation, but for Japan and China, teams that have been in the top 10, what does this mean for them at the moment?
I think it's a massive hit. I think it's really disappointing on China and Japan's behalf. They would, home nation, China being a very good outfit, they would have come into this tournament expecting and hoping for far greater positions than they finished in. I think it's worrying for world hockey. I think what makes us so strong is the strength we have in every region, and that's really important to us on many levels. I think back to Beijing, and China won an Olympic silver medal. The likes of Wang, Fubarong, they were some of the best players in the world, and they haven't seemed to have found that, I don't think, in the last few years. And I think, I hate to say it, and I'm sure there's reasons, but I do think they in particular have underperformed in this tournament. Now, Japan are the team. I absolutely love Japan, because Japan beat, I think it was China maybe 1-0 in the Beijing Olympics, which meant we went through to the semi-finals. Had they not won that game, which on paper they weren't supposed to, we wouldn't have won our bronze medal. So they're my favourite team in the whole world. But they'll have trained exceptionally hard for this, and they'll be disappointed they haven't progressed through to the rounds. But they're a tidy team. I think they will bounce back, as I do think with China as well.
Yeah, I mean, and Japan have got the benefit of a new coach who hopefully will stick with them and take them further. Cedric, we've got still some of the matches to get through, but just your thoughts on that, on the China and Japan situation.
I think, you look at COVID, just think about what COVID did.
Yeah.
People couldn't train.
Yeah.
And one of the few teams in the world which trained on a continuous basis has been India.
Yeah.
They were in a centralized program. We were in a bubble right through when COVID started. With the European teams, the most important thing is the club structure, where you are playing top class hockey right through. So you have that hockey on a continuous basis, even right through the entire time. Whereas in Japan and China, with the COVID situation, there were no matches. They were really found wanting in matches. And I think that is one of the biggest chinks they've had. And apart from the fact that Xavier Anao, who was the coach of the Japanese team, he was Zooming and talking to them on Zoom. He couldn't get to China. He couldn't get to Japan. And it's difficult, but I think the most important thing, how teams have adapted to the scenario and come out, even though they've lost, they're fired, they've given their best. It's been an Olympics which has been really good to watch in terms of teams giving it all, even though they've lost.
Yeah, I agree with you. Second session of the day, we saw 4 European teams in action, and 2 of the unbeaten teams, Germany and Netherlands, went head to head. I think in that match, we began to see a glimpse of what the Dutch can actually do. Alex, I just wondered, what were your thoughts on the Dutch performance in particular?
I think, the Dutch are number 1 for a reason. They're an exceptionally good outfit. I think they're clinical. They really stumbled when they played GB.
Yeah,
I think we always give them a tough game. I don't think they like playing us. I think they struggle, and one wouldn't blame them if that hit their momentum a bit, but they've come out against Germany. They've played a very, very good game against, a very decent Germany outfit, and they've been clinical, professional, and it's meant they've progressed through this group at the top of the pool. So they'll be really delighted with that. Obviously, going into that quarterfinal, which is a must-win game, everybody's got the right to win. I think finishing off against Germany in that manner will mean they're going full of confidence for that quarterfinal.
Yeah,
I think if you look at just what the Dutch did today, well, the way they moved the ball around was so fast. They stretched the German team completely. In the outletting, the one-touch deflections by the midfielders to the strikers just penetrated the entire defense. Yes. They just broke through there. It was brilliant to watch in terms of, and getting into the deep zones just immediately. Even though the help side was coming to the ball side, they still found spaces on the help side. So quickly the transfer was made. It was a delight to watch, and with 55% possession over the Germans, 45%. How many penetrations in the circle? My God, there were so many entries in the circle as compared to the Germans. So this is the Dutch team brimming with confidence. Yeah, and you're right. It was GB who nearly burst their bubble, really truthfully.
From the Dutch team, I thought that we saw 1 or 2 players who we haven't really seen to this point. So I think Liedewij Velten has been missing a little bit in the previous matches, but we really saw her today. I mean, Matt was always there, but I thought Laura Nunink had a very good game, and also Maria Verschoor as well. So we are starting to see the big guns beginning to play their part. But Verschoor, she seems to have almost had a new lease of life, Alex. She's really running that midfield, isn't she?
I completely agree. Verschoor came onto the scene a good few years ago, and I feel like when she came on, she burst onto the scene, and her amazing hair, you see her a mile off.
Yes.
We're all jealous. We love her hair. And she went very quiet. She went very quiet for a couple of years, and I think struggled with injury in and around the squad. And I feel like this Olympics, she's just come alive. Yeah. She's feeding players in. She's getting into the circle. She's got such an engine on her back and forward. All the teams are finding it hard to play against her. So, yeah, I think she's had a fantastic tournament. I agree with Velten. Like, Liedewij is so talented. She is, a player I've always had so much respect for. She scores a heap full of goals. Very quiet the first few games. Very quiet. But again, she's sprung into life. And hey, you want your best goal scorers coming to life at quarterfinals, going into those medal games. So perhaps she's just peaking just at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, she found some beautiful connections with Matler, didn't she? Which hasn't been.
Matler is world class. You're not going to get a better goal scorer. So you've got those 2 playing well together. Matler, Verschoor in the midfield. Obviously Velten up front. You're going to score a hatful of goals at some point.
And of course, Matt was another 15. sorry.
The 2 goals that they scored against Germany today, Velten getting in front of a defender, ball coming along the baseline, and she's marked in the circle, but she's strong, gets in front of a defender and tips the ball inside. And the second one, when there was a turnover, the speed in which she started that movement, it was incredible. Attacked the space in front of you, went straight through, drew the defender, and Matler ran behind the defender, received that ball. Oh my God, this was, I said, oh, this is a treat to watch. And just got the ball, engaged the goalkeeper and slipped it in. This was really, really great teamwork, right?
Yeah, so I agree. Final match we need to talk about, and I'm going to hand over to Alex. GB Ireland, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely delighted. I think it was a game we really needed to win for our momentum as much as anything else. We've won 3 now, lost a couple, but moving into that must-win game, I think Absolutely delighted for Susie Townsend to get on the score sheet. Really, really difficult one to finish. The ball's been saved off a flick. It's quick. It's come back out and she's stopped it, ball straight in. So our corners haven't been working as well, I don't think, as we would like them to, but I think we've picked up some really nice rebounds, and that was a cracking example. Likewise, Ellie Ray, I've been delighted with in this tournament. I'm so happy for her. I think she's really earned her stripe. She scored a couple of fantastic goals, and cutting in on the right-hand side and sending that ball across for a lovely first-time finish from Hannah Martin. Again, 3 times on the score sheet now. They're combining really nicely, but I think actually why GB are doing well is there's no superstars. I wouldn't say there's anybody there that's running the team, that's playing out of their skin and doing everything. Everybody's just doing well. Everybody's doing their job. Everybody's running hard. They're defending. Saying that, Maddie was exceptional against the Netherlands, but she's going to need to be going into these games. They're going to need her because the teams that we're going to face, they're all going to have chances of goal. So we need Maddie to be on it, and then we need everybody else to be just playing their game. And I think against Ireland today, really sad that they're out, obviously, for their first Olympics, but delighted with the performance from Great Britain.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to name check a couple of players I thought in the GB squad who are understated, but I think they're so important. That's Laura Unsworth and Shona McCallan, both of whom I think throughout the tournament have actually been very, very steady. And they don't get an awful lot of plaudits, but they are very, very good at what they do.
I agree. I think it's partly the position they play in. So in screen, in that role, they're almost one of your unsung heroes. They just do a job very well, very simple. Get the ball, send it on, get it back. And that's really important because it just makes the game tick. It makes the players tick. But like you say, they're not the superstars that you maybe see, but behind the scenes, fabulous players, the two of them.
I think the other thing about GB today, was they played a real tactical game. The half-court press, forcing you to play in the center. They really forced the Irish to play in the center. And then as the ball was played in the midfielder, they hit the midfielder so hard and stole the ball, which was really, really nice. Lots of pressure on the ball carrier as soon as it came to the mids. Waiting for the Irish hit a long ball and then pick it up and then go via the deep zones, especially coming into the deep zone on the right-hand side and crashing the balls in. The second goal was really a brilliant tip because the ball came rising in the circle. She saw it the last second. It wasn't the flat ball on the ground. It was really nice. So, this awareness around the goalkeeper is really brilliant. But a tactical game, played hard. Both teams played their heart out, really honest to God. And yeah, it's difficult. One team has to lose in our sport,
Yeah. One team we haven't mentioned, and I'm aware of time, but I'm going to mention them anyway, and that's Spain, who obviously are going to be GB's opponents in the quarterfinals. They obviously didn't have head coach Adi Locke with them for the first few matches. He made a statement about having to be in isolation because of a COVID test. That must have been unbelievably difficult for him and his players. He was communicating them from a quarantine hotel room, watching the matches online. Cedric, can you even begin to think as a coach how you would feel in that situation?
Oh, pull whatever little hair I have on my head off, basically, that kind of stuff. But from a logical point of view, just look at the strength of the team, that he can still get the best out of that squad, being miles away from the team in terms, and them listening to him and getting the inspiration from him still, I think when you don't have, it's like a family. You don't have your family member around with you. You miss the person and you want to do more for that person. Yeah. So from this aspect, it must be really, really difficult not to have your coach around, But today's communication channels, yes, it's available. Think of the old days, it was only letters. What happened then? But from this aspect, I think it was a great performance by the Spaniards. Okay, whatever it is, not to have their coach around and to adapt to a new scenario is most important.
Yeah. If briefly look ahead to the games, obviously Adi will be back with Spain for the GB game. Alex, that will be a boost to them. What are your, just really, really concisely, what are your thoughts on that match?
I have to be honest, I haven't seen enough of Spain, but they finished, was it second in the pool?
Second, yeah, they did very well in the end.
Second in the pool for a reason, so I think it's going to be a really tough matchup. Looking on games we played previously, Great Britain versus Spain, it's always close, it's always feisty, and as you say, it's one game standalone. My money's with Great Britain, but as I said, there's 2 people in the race.
Absolutely. Right, rattle through these matches and you can both tell me your predictions. Australia versus India. Cedric, who's it going to be?
Oh, I think it's going to be a really close match because the Indians love playing the Australians because they play the same kind of brand of hockey.
Yeah.
So I've not said much about India, but I think at this stage she may just pick Australia, although Australia's played really well and done all the way.
Okay, we've already heard Alex's verdict on Spain versus Great Britain. So, Alex, I think this is a tough one. Argentina versus Germany.
Oh, it's going to be really tough. I think it's going to go to extra time. I'm sorry, not extra time. I'm calling shuffles, and I think it's going to be Germany on shuffles.
Okay, and Cedric, New Zealand, Netherlands.
Netherlands, definitely.
Okay, I just to wrap up, I wanted to do this again. I know we're just pushing time a little bit, but Japan, South Africa, China and Ireland have all played some lovely hockey. They've all really added the most amazing edge to this tournament. They've got some real stars within their sides. If I could just come to you both just for a couple of people that you think have shone for the teams that are going home, and I'll come to you first, Alex, on that one.
I'm just so delighted to see Ireland at the Olympics. I think they've gone from strength to strength the last few years in international hockey. I think for any countries on the brink, they just go to show what can be done. So I'm going to go with Katie Mullen, the captain. She's really impressed me over the last few years. And I've got to do a shout out for Shirley McKay. She started her career when I did. She's just battled and battled and battled and battled. And I think they've both been solid, led by example. And I'm just so happy they've had this Olympics experience.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Cedric.
I would add McFerrin into it, Alicia McFerrin into that group because she has played really well, made some saves today also. There was a blinder right across and she got the first one and also got the rebound in really well. So she's basically showed a lot of strength. Whether her teammates up front had the same depth as her, maybe found wanting, but I think she played really well.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much. Great analysis, great insight. You're both back on at some point, so I look forward to speaking to you both again. Thank you very, very much and enjoy the games tomorrow.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Cedric. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Alex.